I wanted to go ahead and do a video very quickly about a film that's actually coming out. And it's called The Murder of Nicole Brown Simpson. And if you guys are looking at the picture right here, that is Mina Savara, who actually played in two iconic movies back in the 90s. Actually, two iconic. One, it became a franchise, and the other one was a movie. The first one is American Pie, and then she was also in American Beauty. Actually, the same year, 1999. Those are the two movies I remember her from the most, her being in American Pie and also in American Beauty. Nevertheless, she's starring as the title character, Nicole Brown Simpson, in this film called The Murder of Nicole Brown Simpson, which provides an alternate perspective about the murder of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman back in 1994. Because, of course, most people think that O.J. Simpson committed these murders, that he killed these two people, that he murdered them back in 1994. That's what's been presented by the mainstream media. That's been presented by most of the people in the general public believe that to be the factual events of this case. Although we all know the outcome, he was found innocent in a court of law back in 1995. And I've been telling people for years that actually O.J. Simpson did not and could not have committed these murders. And a lot of people have said for years I was crazy to say so. I grew up within Los Angeles, and I was in L.A. during the times of these killings. I was a senior in high school during that time, and I used to live in Brentwood and live in Beverly Hills, and I lived over in that area. And one of the things a lot of people don't talk about is that there's a lot of drug use and drug selling that goes on in that particular section of Los Angeles, and it goes unreported because you have a lot of white folks over there who have a lot of money. They have a lot of influence, and a lot of the drug selling and drug dealing that goes on and drug usage that goes on in that part of town. A lot of times it's people don't pay attention to it. The cops, they turn a blind eye. There isn't any repercussions for it. I've actually seen individuals right in front of me step out in broad daylight on the sidewalk with a mountain of cocaine on top of a mirror. I've been to parties where I've seen people pull out a whole entire tray full of cocaine, full of drugs, where they had a sugar bowl full of coke, and they had a brick of marijuana, ecstasy, all kind of pills, just a whole smorgasbord of stuff that will get you high out of your mind and put you in the clinic if that's what you want. This is the kind of activity that you see over in that part of town. And something that's factual that a lot of people don't talk about is the fact that the place that Nicole Brown Simpson, I wouldn't be surprised, if it's in the movie. I'm going to check out the movie when it comes out, because it actually opens up on December the 10th. December the 10th is playing in this theater over in Los Angeles, over on Sunset. I want to put that in the link so you can go and check it out. But I wouldn't be surprised if they actually talk about the Mezzaluma restaurant, which today is actually a coffee shop. But back in the 90s, and I remember this place, where it was on San Vicente, over in Brentwood. It was called the Mezzaluma restaurant. And it was an Italian restaurant that was owned by the mafia. And it was rumored to have been a stopping point for the Cali drug cartel. This is back in the 90s. And then there were reports of waiters, including Ron Goldman himself, that had all sorts of fancy cars that cost tens of thousands of dollars. Like, for example, they had BMW. Some of them had other cars that cost over $50,000. I know that Ron Goldman, he was in the process of building a nightclub for himself. And you have to ask the question, where was he getting the money from? Now, I'm only speculating. I'm not saying that Ron Goldman was dealing drugs, but it was rumored that you had waiters that were in there dealing drugs and selling drugs. inside that place. So it's very well possible that the murder of Nicole Brown Simpson and the murder of Ron Goldman could have been a hit. And the reason why, and my theory has always been, the reason why they can't find the individuals who did it is because of the fact they're not in the country anymore. Because many of these drug cartels, one of the things they do is that they will force a hit on an individual. And once the job is done, the guys who committed the crime go back home. And there's no one to investigate. They're not in the system. You don't know who they are. And even if you find out who they are, you can't track them down because they're not, here in the States anymore. And that's exactly what happened in this particular situation. So that makes a lot more sense to me. And Tariq Nasheed, shout out to him. He actually did a very good expose explaining a lot of the holes that were in that case in terms of just the proximity in terms to where San Vicente was and where Nicole Brown Simpson lived over in San Vicente, or over in Santa Monica, and that versus to where he lived over in Brentwood, way over on Rottenham, over up in the hills. They try to make it seem as if you could get from San Vicente all the way, from Rottenham all the way down to where Nicole Brown Simpson can get in a matter of minutes. But in reality, it takes you about 15 minutes to get you, 15 minutes to half an hour to go from where he lived to where she lived. How do I know? Because I've been up to Rottenham many, many times. It's up in the hills. It's exclusive. And it takes you some time to drive up there and to drive back down. And they make it seem as if O.J. Simpson was logistically capable of driving from where he lived in Rottenham all the way down to her place on San Vicente in broad daylight, murders of both of them, changes his clothes. Drives back up to his house, changes his clothes, catches the airport, catches the plane, all in a matter of 45 minutes without leaving any clues in terms of what he did. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. Logistically, a person wouldn't be able to commit that kind of crime and in that, small amount of time. And one of the most key things they always leave out is that cop, Furman. They try to make it seem as if Mark Furman was some rogue cop. But Mark Furman, if you listen to, or if you read the transcripts of that interview that he had with that screenwriter, he talks about in great detail that there was a whole entire culture of police misconduct in the LAPD. They routinely did things like set up black people. He talked about the fact that if he saw interracial couples, he would go out of their way to impound their cars. This is what Mark Furman said. Mark Furman talked about the fact that they beat confessions out of gang members. They routinely harassed individuals. They planted evidence. They did all these things that were completely outside the police protocol, but there was a whole entire culture of cops that routinely did this. And in fact, what happened when he was put on trial and put on the stand and they asked him the question, did you manufacture any evidence in this case? And what did he say? He pled the fifth. So considering all this, I always tell people that the likelihood that O.J. Simpson killed his ex-wife is very small. And one other thing too, we also have to take into consideration as the fact that Goldman had bruises on his knuckles. O.J. Simpson didn't have any lacerations on his face or his body whatsoever. So whoever killed Ron Goldman, he put up a fight. And you're not going to be able to stab a man to death when he's punching you and kicking you all up in the face because the guy has a martial arts background without walking away with any sort of wounds or lacerations or cuts or bruises on your face. But this whole entire super nigga theory, they always try to implement on black people as if because when we get rich and famous, we have money, we're able to become mastermind criminals all of a sudden. We get money and all, whether it be him, whether it be Michael Jackson or whoever it is, you get some money. Now all of a sudden you're able to be a mastermind criminal and just do things other people can't do. It's just ludicrous and ridiculous. So, but I'm interested in watching this film to see what kind of theory that they actually put out. Because I've been telling people for years that when people sit up and say we all know O.J. Simpson did it, which I've encountered some suspected white supremacists who have said that to me, I pull the card back and say, whoa, wait a second, hold on a minute, wait a minute, we don't know that, you don't know that, and I go back and I start telling them the facts that I just illustrated here, okay? The Mezzaluma restaurant, and then also too with that Mezzaluma restaurant, you had murders that were connected to that place months after O.J. Simpson was killed. You had murders that were connected with that place. So the likelihood of O.J. killing his ex-wife and Ron Goldman, I've always thought was implausible. Didn't make any sense to me. He had no motive. You know, he saw her, I believe, about a week before she was actually killed, and there were no arguments. They were actually pretty cordial towards each other. So why all of a sudden this man who had been divorced from his wife and had himself a girlfriend while she had herself a boyfriend would all of a sudden just snap on that specific day, take a knife and go to town and actually kill her without any sort of argument, or there was no sort of trigger or event or anything that led up to any kind of escalation that he would actually do this out the blue. He would just decide to just murder her on that particular day. It didn't make any sense. It never made any sense to me. But the connection of that restaurant, the Mezzaluma restaurant, and all of the criminal activity that transpired in that place, and I believe the cops turned a blind eye to it, that made a lot more sense. Her acquaintance with her friend, Faye Resnick, and her connection to people in the underworld made more sense in terms of her being killed. And more than likely, I believe that's probably what happened, is that it was a hit. And the reason why they couldn't find the people that did it is because of the fact that they're probably not even in the country any longer. They went back home. They went somewhere else. And the cops, the DA, which is what they always do, they rushed to judgment. And they decided to make O.J. Simpson they decided to make him the suspect of this case. Make him the suspect of this case when it really wasn't enough evidence to put him as the only person. And I do think that Furman and Adder did manufacture evidence. They did set him up. They did make it seem as if he actually did this. All right? Okay? And one other thing, too, that's not talked about. The lead detective, Van Adder, he withheld O.J. Simpson's blood in his car for days before he turned it into the toxicology scientists. These are all facts. You can look up everything that I'm saying. All right? And I've been telling people this for years and years and years and years, that O.J. Simpson did not kill those people based off the evidence that I saw. I don't think that he did. I think it was a hit. That makes a lot more sense. Considering history, considering what was going on at that restaurant, and you have people that were killed even after that trial in connection to that place, that made more sense that's what happened to Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman, as opposed to O.J. Simpson being, this murderer that they tried to put out there. O.J. is a coon. Don't get me wrong. O.J. Simpson is a coon. He's walking around sitting up and saying things like, I'm not black, I'm O.J., but I've never thought that O.J. was a murderer. It just doesn't make any sense why he would actually, do what he did. For what reason? Why? And why now? Never made any sense. Because he had gotten into an altercation with her 5 years ago. They weren't even married. Never made any sense to me. So, anyway. This is Roz Rants. You can go ahead and like the channel, subscribe, push the share button, and I will talk to you all soon. Later. Take it easy.